Welcome on into another edition of Nate Hit the Foul Pole. This is the second to last week of the MLB regular season. Kind of feels surreal, especially with everything that we've gone through this season. A lot of COVID-related stuff in the news. We didn't really know if we were going to play a full season. It's looking like that will be the case. Just what are your thoughts, Zach, on the season thus far?
Well, we had the first week in Miami where all the players went out and then they all tested positive, and it looked like a disaster. I mean, I think everyone collectively kind of thought that the season would be over really before it started. We got that one weekend, and then everyone was really, really concerned about this spreading more and more. And it's kind of gone a lot better than I expected, really, and probably a lot better than everyone expected. And it's ended up going pretty good. We've had a few positive tests here and there, but it really hasn't been like a super spreader event at all. And the teams have been able to play in their home parks for the most part, and I think it's gone pretty well. And hopefully these players can keep it up in the postseason with being, a little bit, trying to stay out of the public and keep testing negative. That would be great, and hopefully the postseason can go on.
Yeah, I think they're planning the bubble for the postseason there.
Right.
I saw some of the locations. I believe they have the World Series planned for the new Texas stadium.
Yeah, it's in Arlington. Yeah.
Right. So that should, help the process of, staying safe. Obviously, they're worried about the second wave potentially hitting sometime in October, November. So that is when the MLB postseason will be played. Hopefully, everybody stays safe and is smart. But on the Orioles front, there is some stuff to talk about before the season wraps up. We will do another show next week as well. But this week has its up and down, just like every week with the Orioles. It seems like since we've done our last show, they've gone 2-4. Their 2 wins were really, really good. Put up 14 runs against the Braves. They actually took 2 out of 3 from the Braves. So what are your thoughts on the week the Orioles had?
It was all right. You talk about it being up and down. I think that's the best way to describe it. It's been very inconsistent. The Orioles haven't been able to string together a lot of wins in a row. And that's probably the reason that they missed the playoffs. I mean, that's the reason. They were looking good in the beginning, but, inconsistency and guys getting cold and pitching getting cold at the same time just kind of hurt the Orioles in the long run. But, it's the young wave that we're looking at right now. That's kind of what the focus has been on. And it's been really exciting to see. We've seen Kramer, we've seen Zimmerman now, we've seen Aiken. Of course, Ryan Mountcastle might be a rookie of the year. We don't know about that yet. And, so much of this youth, even Hunter Harvey, has just been here and been producing, and DJ Stewart's been great. And that's kind of where my focus is on, not so much winning, but player development. And I think as far as player development goes, the Orioles have been doing a great job lately, and I hope they keep doing that. And, only a week and a half left, maybe a little less than that now. So just keep getting these guys good at bats, keep having the pitchers start every 5th day. And I think the Orioles are in a really good position going to 2021.
Yeah, I think I've been pleasantly surprised. Put the record aside, which is just even better than I expected, but I think the individual performances are something to take a look at. I wanted to kind of do this segment here where we evaluate the rest of the AL East and see, where do the Orioles kind of stack up. If you're looking at, say, like a future value for a team, if you're going to put a future value on the Blue Jays or the Rays, where would you put it? And I actually have the mid-season updated farm system list from MLB Pipeline. Guess who checks in at number 1? Tampa Bay Rays. Obviously, they have been known to be one of the smarter franchises in terms of decision-making and evaluation. How do you kind of see their outlook?
Yeah, the Rays are interesting because they're one of the few teams that have a top team in baseball right now. And then they also have a top farm system. And that's special to have. That's really good management from top to bottom. And they're in a really good position for the long run. They've got a lot of young players on that team right now. This team can produce pitching like almost no other team. I mean, Tampa Bay has every guy just come up and pitch really well. A lot of them get injured, unfortunately, and maybe that's an organizational thing. But this team looks really good for the long run. Wander Franco is going to be a beast. They've got Brennan McKay, and then Tyler Glasnow is still coming into his own. And there's a lot of guys that just are going to make an impact in these next few years. Willie Adames, we've seen in that last series against the O's, just getting better and better. It's looking really good for the Rays. I think they will kind of own the AL East as far as the next few years go, at least, and maybe even longer than that, because it is really, truly special when you can have a number 1 team in your division and also the number 1 farm system. So That's just great management by them. Can't even be mad about that. They're a low budget team who plays in a really low budget city. So it's pretty amazing what they've done, and I'm really jealous, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I think that's the way to win. I think if you're a bottom five market like the Orioles are, like the Rays are, you have to develop your own, and you can't really rely on free agents to fill in the holes.
Yeah.
I think the Orioles did the right thing by bringing in Michael Elias, who with Sig Mejdal in St. Louis, then in Houston, kind of did things the right way, drafted well, developed well. Also helps if you are the Rays and you have the number one prospect of baseball in Wander Franco.
Yeah.
And don't sleep on a guy by the name of Shane Baz, because he's got some really good stuff. He's pretty young, but I think he can make an impact as soon as next year.
Yeah, Shane Baz is great too. He came over in the Chris Archer trade, I believe, from the Pirates. Mm-hmm. And he's a guy who hasn't quite made the majors yet, but he's really, really solid. And there are a lot of pitchers in that organization who are going to make an impact. Tampa Bay, the one place I would say is not so great for them is just the lineup overall is not as good as, the Yankees or the Dodgers or some of the other high value teams right now. And I think that's something they'll probably address over the offseason. They went out and got Margot and Renfroe this past season, but they still need some work there. They don't have a lot of power. They got Susugo as well, but the power is still lacking. They don't really have that guy who comes up to the plate, and I'm afraid of personally as a fan. I'm just not really afraid of any hitter in that lineup.
No.
Maybe Brandon Lau, but it still lacks that superstar quality player in that lineup, and I think that's something they'll get in the future years, maybe even Wander Franco next year. But that's probably the one place they have to upgrade, but this team looks really good.
Yeah, I think they're one of those teams that if they weren't in the same division as the Orioles, they would be probably a team I would root for. I personally think that Kevin Cash is in the top tier of managers. I think he gets really creative with lineups. They invented the whole opener thing. So I think they're really a forward-thinking organization, and probably, I'm going to say this, probably the Orioles' top threat in terms of future value.
Yeah, I mean, you look at these two teams, and they are the best two teams as far as farm system goes and future value goes in this division right now. Obviously, we'll talk about the other teams later, but these are the two that have the future value, like you said, and I think these guys, these two teams are going to be clashing for a long time.
Yep, and next thing I want to talk about are the Blue Jays, who come in at number 7. Just, according to these rankings, just one spot above the Orioles, who they have at number 8. So if you want to look at some players in the Blue Jay system, you got Nate Pearson, who throws like 103, your boy, Austin Martin, and Jordan Groshans as well.
Yeah, I don't really agree with them being better than us according to Pipeline. I mean, I think ratings are subjective anyway, rankings. And, you can put them anywhere. I would personally rank the Orioles above. I think there's a lot more depth in the Orioles organization than the Blue Jays, but that's up to whoever makes these lists. But they also have a really good future, and they have a lot of young guys. Vladimir Guerrero hasn't quite found his stride yet. He just really hasn't been the player everyone expected him to be, but he's only 21, 22 years old, so he's got a lot of time. Bo Bichette looks like a superstar in the making. They've got some nice players. And Nate Pearson, he pitched all right before he got injured, but they're another dangerous team. I don't really think they are going to run the AL East by any means, but I think they're definitely going to be a second or third place team year in and year out for the next 10 years or so.
I kind of view them like how they were like 4 to 5 years ago, as that like annoying, like sneaky team. They're not going to be, the best in baseball, but they're going to be tough to play night in, night out. And, we'll see what happens. I think that young core, they're going to keep it together.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. They're trying to compete right now. And they're not really, they're going to make the playoffs this year, but they're not probably going to make a very big run. I mean, it's just hard. It's really hard to believe they would go any farther than maybe the divisional series, but we'll just have to see how it goes. There are 16 teams now in the playoffs, so they kind of found themselves a spot. And they were kind of a lock from almost day one. They've been in a really good position for the whole season. So, they're going to keep keeping that young nucleus around, and Biggio and Guerrero and all these guys are going to keep getting better and better. But I agree. I don't think they're going to be a top team, but I think they're definitely going to be a sneaky one.
I think it's crazy to me because, I think you could argue that they've played the Orioles the toughest out of any divisional opponent this year. I mean,
Yeah.
The Yankees swept them in 4. They swept them in 2, but they also, lost 3 or 4 of the series before. The Blue Jays have been consistently getting wins against the Orioles, so definitely wouldn't sleep on them. And then looking here at some of the other teams, we got the Yankees. They're ranked at number 19, which is pretty standard for the Yankees. They're going to be usually bottom half of the league because they just buy their players. It's hard for me to evaluate because we don't know if free agents are going to go there. They just seem to replenish whatever their weaknesses are year in and year out.
Yeah, the Yankees are interesting because, like you said, they do kind of buy a lot of their team, but there are homegrown guys there now. I mean, you look at Aaron
Sure.
Judge, of course, is a homegrown player, and he's been fantastic for them. And, Clint Frazier's coming up now, and other homegrown players really making an impact.
Davey Garcia.
Davey Garcia, yeah, there's a lot of guys, and they have the young talent. I wouldn't just say it's premier young talent. It's a lot of good, but the team's sort of old. I mean, you look at that team up and down, and there's a lot of older guys they're going to have to replace. Aaron Hicks is getting up there a little bit. I think the Yankees' outlook is always going to be good. You can never say the Yankees are going to lose a division. It's hard to believe they will. They're just always good. They get these high-priced free agents, and that's what they do. And, that's probably not going to change, but they might need to start changing the outlook of that farm system a little bit. It's just not as good as it could be. They haven't really drafted all that well in the past few years, so, it's going to be a struggle for them farm system-wise, but they have so much money. They can really do anything. I'm never going to count the Yankees out.
Yeah, and then obviously the Red Sox would round out the list. Only 2 guys they have on the top 100, Jeter Downs and Tristan Casas. I actually like both of these prospects a lot, especially Tristan Casas' bat. I think it's legit. I think he's going to be a force in that lineup for years to come. I don't really see them having a great outlook in terms of future value, though. I think they got still some big contracts on the team, namely JD Martinez. So it'll be interesting. I think they got the right guy for the job in Chaim Bloom, and he's probably one of the top 2 or 3 smartest guys in all of baseball.
Oh, yeah, totally agree. Chaim Bloom is fantastic, but I kind of feel that the Red Sox are where the Orioles were in 2017. They kind of have a few stars left around from their really great years. They won the World Series a few years ago, but they don't really have the young talent to replenish it. And they're kind of struggling. I mean, they've been horrible this year. I don't really expect them to get much better next year. It's probably not a smart idea for them to go out and get a big name free agent this year. And of course, you've got JD Martinez and Sale, who you're paying a ton of money and aren't really producing that much. JD Martinez hasn't been that good. Sale's been injured. So they're kind of in a rough spot. Chaim Bloom is fantastic. He knows his stuff. He's really, really good at drafting, too.
Except drafting Nick York.
Except drafting Nick York. But it's really going to be an interesting thing of how they replenish this farm system because it is so bad right now. It is really, really bad.
Yep. All right. So, if you're listening in on this, tell us what you think, either on the YouTube live stream or on Twitter. If you want to tweet us in and say where you think the Orioles kind of fit in the future power rankings of the AL East, we would definitely appreciate your feedback. Did want to get into the weekly who's hot, who's not. For my guy, at least for who's hot, I could have picked, a couple of guys. I'm actually going to go with kind of a guy off the beaten path in Cesar Valdez.
Okay.
He's just he's got that junk ball thing going, and nobody can hit him. And he barely gives up any runs. He's got a .81 WHIP. He kind of reminds me of Stevie Wilkerson pitching. And I mean that in the sincerest way. Don't mean that to be a slight in any way. It's just it's interesting to see. He's not going to be a piece of the future team as he is 35 years old, but he's fun to watch.
We have some breaking hot stove news, but I'll save that for a few minutes here as far as the Orioles go. But I do want to make a note on who's hot, and I'm going to also talk about Cesar Valdez because this has got to be one of the most interesting stories as far as anybody has gone so far in the Orioles 2020 season. I mean, this guy pitched in the Mexican League. He's been around. He really has never had success before, but it's really impressive what he's done. I mean, he has just come in here and he's thrown his dead fish, I believe they call it, and it's worked out fantastic. And he's been a real big piece for them. He blew a game a few nights ago, but it's going to happen. A guy's not going to pitch 100% of the time well, so it's fine with me. I'm looking at the Orioles possibly offering him a cheap extension next year, bringing him back. maybe a 1 or 2 year deal. He's already 34, but why not? This guy doesn't even throw velocity, doesn't need to throw velocity. He's just really, really good.
Yep. And then for my who's not, I'm going to go with Cole Sulser.
Yeah.
Since being demoted to the out of the closer role, I guess he has had a 10.13 ERA over the last 7 games and a WHIP over 2. Just looks completely lost out there. Probably not going to be part of the future.
Yeah, for sure, a DFA candidate, and that will probably be coming soon. He's already in his 30s, so the Orioles don't really have to keep him around. There's no inclination to keep him around, so that will probably be happening anytime soon. Probably in the winter would make sense. But it's fine. He's giving them innings, I guess, and he's a strike thrower. That's what they liked for him in the first place, but he's been pretty bad. I don't think anybody really likes him. The fans kind of hate him, unfortunately, but it is what it is. For my guy, I'm going to go to DJ Stewart. He's been pretty cold, and I don't know if he's real or not. We're going to get into that in a few minutes, but he's just been pretty cold, striking out a little bit more. I'm just not a DJ Stewart guy, so I don't really think he's the real deal, but we're going to get into that in a few minutes. I do want to read some hot stove news because this is pretty interesting. The Orioles got a player to be named later for Richard Blyer a few months ago when they traded Blyer to the Marlins, and that now player has been named, and his name is Isaac De Leon. He's a shortstop from the Marlins, and he was signed out of Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, at 256 in 66 games for the Dominican Summer League Marlins. So not a top 30 prospect according to the pipeline. I already checked on that. Orioles did just acquire a future Hall of Famer according to that. So, this guy's only 18 years old, a shortstop. I love acquiring shortstops because they can play anywhere. Probably a similar move to what the Orioles got for Andrew Kashner last year with Noelberth Romero and Elio Prado. So it makes sense. This is a really smart move, I think, just getting a guy who could possibly be a lottery ticket where he's either going to be a complete no-name or a guy who just, makes it stateside and becomes a good player.
I'm all about it. I think, some of these lottery tickets, you're eventually going to hit on a couple of them. I think you should be acquiring as much talent as you possibly can. I don't really expect a whole lot back for Richard Blyer, so I think anything of value is going to be of use, and I think this developmental staff could do a really good job with him.
Yeah, he walked 38 times in 66 games in 2019, yeah. So I'm not going to complain about that at all. And I love guys who walk. I love shortstops. So this is a fine move by me. I'm not really expecting much more for Richard Blyer. So this works for me. He is going to be added to the Orioles 60-man player pool, and then next year apparently he will go to Bowie, all according to Rock Kubatko. So we'll see what happens. And
for 18, that's pretty impressive.
Actually, I'm going to correct myself because I think Rock was talking about this year. He will be going to Bowie this year. But maybe next year start off at Frederick. I'm not really sure how advanced they think he is, but they clearly like him if they're going to add him to the player pool.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so you did mention your guy who's not hot, DJ Stewart. We could talk a little bit about him, and he's still hitting dingers. He's still getting home runs. You think he's maybe not so for real? What do you think?
I don't know. I can't make that decision because sometimes he'll just look so good and he hits every mistake, and then other times he just swings through balls right down the middle. I'm not a DJ Stewart guy. I never have been. I never liked him in the draft. I'm not sure whether this is real or not, but all these home runs he's hitting, I'm talking about, he's been cold as of now. He's definitely cooled down quite a bit from that insane hot streak he had, but I don't really think many people expected him to keep that up. But we'll just see how it goes. I don't really know what else there is to say. He just strikes out a lot. He's going to hit the home runs. He does have good play discipline, so there's that. And I can hang your hat on that if you're a DJ Stewart fan, I guess. But I'm more interested as far as how the Orioles handle him with all the outfielders they have, and then the first base, third base type guys they have in the system too, like Renato Nunez and Trey Mancini coming back next year. Tyler Nevin's there now, Ryan Mountcastle. So kind of a crowded space. How do you think that DJ Stewart fits into this?
Yeah, I think, Orioles fans probably got a little bit too crazy with the DJ hype train, but I am going to defend him for a moment. I like the profile. not saying anything other than offensively. I like the profile of people who get on base frequently. He has a very low batting average. It's in the 230s, I believe. Yeah, 230 exactly. But he's still on base percentage over 382. OPS plus 162, so he's hitting 62% better than the average hitter. But it's only 61 at bats. I mean, that's a pretty small sample size. Especially he looked horrific before he went down to Bowie. Then he looked great. Now he's cooling off a little bit. I would like to see him get a full season being the everyday starting whatever fielder. And I'd like to see him get that shot. I think down the road, if you think you can trade him for a pitching prospect or for a middle infielder prospect, I think you do it. But I would like to see him get a full season's worth before I can make my decision.
Yeah, I mean, fair point. He hasn't really had a full season in the majors ever, and he really hasn't had the chances that maybe he could have had. But personally, I think there are better options. I'm excited to see what Yusniel Diaz has next year. I think he is, maybe one of the long-term players in this team. I hope he is. I still hold out hope for him. But it is what it is. We'll just see. And I think they do like DJ Stewart a lot.
Did you see the comment that Buck Showalter made?
About Dean Kramer?
Yeah.
Yeah, Buck Showalter said on Glenn Clark Radio, part of Press Box, that Dean Kramer was his favorite prospect that the Orioles got out of the Manny Machado deal. So there's that.
Surprised.
I mean,
kind of surprised.
Yeah, I mean, he led the league in strikeouts the year they got him. So they knew he was good. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Diaz was a higher ranked guy at the time, but I think they saw that development path for Kramer just being really good, and he's incredible. I love Kramer. There is no pitcher that has come up in the past 5 or 6 years that I've enjoyed as much as Kramer. He has big league stuff. He has big league mentality, and he knows how to pitch out of situations that he gets himself into. This is one of my favorite pitchers, and I tweeted it the other day, but I think he's the best pitcher the Orioles have had as a starter since prime Chris Tillman.
Interesting. Okay. I could see that. I'd like to see him pitch a little bit more, but I see the ability's absolutely there. He's got really good stuff. He strikes out everyone. I would have said the same thing about John Means last year, though.
Well, I think it's the stuff that does it for me. He just looks like he has big league stuff. That curveball is incredible. That fastball is really, really good. He can locate it anywhere. He nibbles, and he does it really effectively. And this is a guy who can hide that changeup and that sinker, and he can be a fastball curveball guy and mix those other pitches in and be really effective. So, I love Kramer. I think he's got he's got room to get better. Of course, he needs to throw a little less pitches per inning, but I think he's going to be a great pitcher. I hope he's like a 3 for us down the road, but it's just going to be exciting to watch his development for sure.
So we did see another Orioles pitcher debut last night. Be Bruce Zimmerman, Baltimore's own. Kind of rough. He started out with the 3-run home run in the bottom of the first inning. Gave up 5 earned runs overall. Just one start. So I mean, not really much you can say. I think I've read up on him that his curveball looks pretty good. But what are you seeing out of him, and do you think he might be a potential piece for the future?
Well, first of all, he's going to get more chances, and he had a rough start, but that's not really saying much about what Bruce Zimmerman is. He was really good at Bowie and AAA last year as well. So, he's got the stuff, and I think he's really improved his stuff since he came over from the Braves. Actually, a Towson Tiger, which is pretty cool. A local guy, a Baltimore kid, and ended up going to Mount Olive, which I believe is in North Carolina. So he did go to a D3 school and was drafted by the Braves, and the Orioles acquired him in the Gausman trade. So pretty cool that he gets to come back home. I know he's a big Ravens fan. I see him tweet about that, and big Orioles fan as well growing up. Cool. So, yeah, he's a Baltimore guy through and through. Pretty cool to have on the Orioles, and I thought it was really cool that a guy gets to make his major league debut in the stadium he grew up going to. I think that's really, really cool. And, Zimmerman, he was okay last night. First start, nerves going on. He didn't really throw a lot of strikes in that first inning and just kind of got himself into a bad situation early on. But I'm looking at a guy who could probably be like a long relief piece, I think is where I'd put him at right now. And I think there's a lot of guys who will battle him for that spot. I think Zach Lowther is another guy who profiles like that. Maybe Kevin Smith if he doesn't pan out as a starter. And there's other guys that Alex Wells you could put into that conversation that the Orioles are going to need bullpen pieces down the road. That there's no doubt about it. You obviously look at the starting rotation as the 5 guys who are going to take you in and day in and day out, but you need a bullpen as well. And the Orioles always had good bullpens in their run from 12 to 16. So, you're going to need bullpen pieces, and I think Zimmerman can be one of them.
Yeah, maybe this is a little bit of a teaser to the episode next week, but I think we're going to look at 2021 to really see when these prospects could be, really arriving in Baltimore. Should be fun. But before I get to our game preview for tonight, we're just going to do a brief one today on this episode. But did want to just look back at the 2018 farm system for the Orioles. Just kind of a fun little thing. And the thing that stood out to me was that DJ Stewart was ranked number 23 back in 2018, and a lot of the names on the list look different than they do now.
Yeah, you look back at that 2018 list, and there is not a lot of guys that are on that list now. And this is just incredible work by Mike Elias. He has done an absolutely incredible job since coming in. We all talked about believing in the process in 2018, and I know now that the process is as real as it sounded back then. The worst is behind us. That's the one thing I'll say to all Orioles fans. The worst is behind us. They are on a track right now to having a top farm system, and soon, hopefully a top team in our division. It's really exciting to see. I mean, just so much development in that farm system. There are a lot of guys that were there, like Richie Martin in that 2018 list, and just a bunch of guys that don't really belong there and are of course not there now. Super excited to see what they've done in 2 years, and it just shows how far the Orioles have come, how great they've been at drafting, how good they've been in trades, and the worst is behind us, and we're gonna come up and hopefully see this first wave. We're seeing it now, and then the second wave maybe next year.
Yeah, just looking at a few guys on the list. Obviously, Yusniel Diaz was number 1. Luis Ortiz number 7. That's kind of hilarious. Caden Granger number 9. So. Just funny to look back and see guys like Richie Martin. Dean Kramer was all the way down at 16. So, like you said, Michael Elias come in here, done a really bang-up job, and it's very nice and refreshing to see how much improved this 30-man list is today.
I think it's also important to talk about the guys who have risen, too. I mean, look at Mike Ballman being at 21. I mean, Ballman was never really, back then, a highly considered prospect. Now there are people in the organization that we've heard about that think Ballman is actually better than DL Hall. So there's a lot of development going on here too. It's just great to see. I'm very excited about the Orioles' future. And what we've seen from this first wave and Mountcastle and Kramer and Aiken just makes me even more confident for these next guys who come up in that second wave. Adley probably will be part of that second wave, Bowman, Lowther, those kind of guys. So I'm really looking forward to it.
All righty. So it looks like we can get on to our game preview for tonight. The Orioles continue their 5-game series with the Rays. Drop the first 2. Looks like there is Alex Cobb is pitching for the Orioles tonight, going against Tyler Glasnow. Cobb has been, really struggling his last couple of starts. He started out, he looked really strong the first couple outings. We thought he might be a potential trade piece come mid to late August. It's not really what you want to see from him, but hopefully he can finish the season strong. Yeah,
you never know what you're going to get from him. One night he'll look like a great pitcher, he'll look like an ace, he'll give you 7 innings of 1-hit ball. I mean, that's what he does a lot. And the next inning, next game will come out and give you a, 2-inning outing and, 5 runs earned. So you never really know what you're going to expect from Alex Cobb, but he's not a bad pitcher. He just gets himself into jams that he doesn't get out of them, and we'll see what he does tonight. I don't know what his future looks like with this team. I think he will definitely be a guy that'll look to trade, get rid of that contract. And next year, there won't be as much money left on the contract where teams will be wary of taking him. So, hopefully Mike Elias can work a trade there. Mike Elias works trade magic all the time. So, I think it's possible, but we'll see what he's got tonight. All I ask is 5 innings of like six hit ball maybe, and 2 runs, 3 runs. Gives the Orioles a chance to win.
Yeah, and I think that's all you want. It's really tough in those 7-inning doubleheader games because it's like once you get to like the 5th inning, like the pressure's on, you're down a run, down 2 runs.
Right.
So it'll be nice to see a full 9-inning game. Anything else, Zach, before we wrap this one up?
That's about it. That's pretty much it. And I'm looking forward to a weekend of the O's and the Ravens on Sunday. So it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, and we mentioned that next week is going to be final episode for the season. We will give some more details when that happens. We plan at this juncture to do one more live stream Orioles game to wrap up the season. Might be sometime late next week. We'll have to see how our schedules work out, but that should be exciting. Those are always fun. Last time we had Ryan Blake on, John Mioli, so definitely enjoy that.
Yeah, for sure. Can't wait to do it.
All right, and we appreciate you listening or watching to Nate Hit the Foul Pole. We're always putting out content. Be sure to follow us on our Twitter account at Foul Pole Pod. And thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week.